Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to the Nintendo Prime Podcast, episode 44. I sincerely hope everything is sounding good this week. We've had no issues. I have literally changed 0 settings from last week. So if suddenly it sounds like crap, I might just go ahead and yeet my computer right into the garbage dump. All right. That being said, I'm your host as always, Nathaniel Janc, and as you can see, I don't actually have a co-host. Eric is not here today. That's okay. He's got stuff going on. It's called a job. Kind of comes first. So we do have a special guest on, however, and that is the man, the myth, the legend, Andres Restart. How's it going, buddy?
Whoa, I'm a legend. All right, I'm cool.
Legendary.
I'm good. I'm doing all right. All things considered. Busier week than expected, but
I mean, definitely
overall,
a
it's pretty
little
good.
unexpected this week.
There's good to be had, and yeah,
kind of an ironic week. So before we get into our first topic, you guys know we'll be talking a lot about Breath of the Wild 2 today. Also, another topic that I didn't even tell Andres about because it kind of just came across my newsfeed today. So we'll talk about that later. But we always start every episode talking about what have we been playing lately. And I mean, for me, it's real simple. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the only thing that has graced a screen other than TV shows in the last week. So that's what I've been playing. I'm not done with it yet. I'm sort of taking my sweet time. I clearly could have beat the game by now, even 100%. But I'm just trying to savor it because every new level I get to, every new challenge stage I reach, just is better and better and better. So I'm like forcing myself to stop because I don't want it to end. And I'm really afraid I'm going to get to the end and be like, damn, I wish there was more. Because that's the way I felt with other really great Nintendo games like Pikmin 3. Got to the end of that and I just felt like, this is great. I don't want it to stop, and it stopped. And since I'm 100%ing the game on the hardest difficulty, if we could even call it that, I guess I can go back through and see what the hell is easy difficulty then. I'm actually kind of curious. I'm almost afraid to load into it. That being said, that's what I've been playing. Andres Restart, what have you been playing lately, bud?
So I also have been playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and I also think it's a delight. I also plan on 100%ing it. We talked about this a couple days ago. It's probably it seems like a fairly easy game to 100%. Not that it's easy to do that, but compared to other games, it is easy to 100%. But 100%ing it gives it kind of like that challenge. So I've been playing that. I'm still pretty early on, but I've also been playing Cuphead as well. I finally got into Cuphead, and I've been having a good time with that too. So
nice.
I've been sort of juggling Cuphead, Kirby, and Mario Kart, and F-Zero X. Whatever suits my fancy in the moment, I play one of those four games.
Quite the lineup.
Yeah, no, it's a good time. And none of them are like really like narrative driven. I mean, you could argue Kirby is, but not really. So it's not like, I need to, like, for example, if I was playing Breath of the Wild 2 when it comes out, I would probably only play that game and nothing else unless, like, someone wanted to play a multiplayer game with me. Otherwise, I would just be playing Breath of the Wild 2. But these games are kind of games I can kind of jump in for, like, a minute or two at a time for a little bit, and it's just kind of what I've been doing lately. And it's been very pleasurable. I'm very happy. I mean, I've been happy with my Switch. Like, there's just plenty of games to play, right? So, like, I mean, we're gonna talk about it at some point or another, right? But like with the Breath of the Wild 2 delay, like, yeah, that sucks. But also, we have so many games to play. I have a number of games on my Switch that I haven't gotten around to. I've only been one of the Ori games that's still saved on there. I have Bayonetta to finish and beat. Obviously Kirby. Now I have to go back and play Okami HD. There's just Doom Eternal. I haven't it does a lot. I have to get. I mean, outside of my Switch, I still need to get Elden Ring. So like, I'm not really. There's just so many games to play. So
and it's not going to slow down. This is a packed year for every system.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to be a gamer.
Very dense.
Especially if you have a lot of free time and money, which usually does not coincide together. So hey, if you're a gamer that has a lot of free time and money, this is the year for you. Especially with like the kinds of games like Legends Arceus that took some time commitment for that. Elden Ring clearly takes some time commitment. Kirby's almost a reprieve at this point compared to the games that have been coming out. So, and since it doesn't take a massive chunk of time, um, yeah, there's just a lot happening this year, and it's going to continue. I think to get better and better and better, even if a certain game is no longer this year. Um, Kind of sad, but
But
also it's okay.
random thought that is absolutely not true. I am not suggesting this at all. Just a passing thought that I'm throwing out there. What if the Breath of the Wild 2 delay is an elaborate April Fool's joke? And 2 days after the Breath of the Wild 2 delay, they're like, ah, psych, it's still coming out this year. Here's a Breath of the Wild 2 direct. Just shadow drop it tomorrow. And they announce it's coming out in October.
So, oh, dude, I love my chat right now. So a particular user in the chat said Nate wants more games. One, I didn't say I want more games. To be clear, that is not what I said. I said those people that have a lot of free time and a lot of money are going to be very happy this year. And two, I don't even play games. I'm so what? I live stream games every week. Bare minimum, there's at least a day a week I'm playing games. Then, right? Like you guys can see it live. I don't. I'm sorry that my life is not obsessed with playing 4+ hours of video games a day anymore. You know, that's what happens when you grow up. You got to choose your time wisely to balance between life and obviously this YouTube stuff and jobs and school and kids. And yeah, I still game. Damn it. Just because I haven't beat Kirby yet. My God, I've already put like 6 hours into it. Leave me alone. Damn. You know, people just, everyone's different, you know? Everyone's different. Speaking of games, though, and we already briefly touched about it, we might as well just get into it, the first topic, because obviously this is a really, really big topic, a really big piece of news. And it's kind of funny because the whole topic today was supposed to be, hey, you know, you made that video about how you're like not really that excited for Breath of the Wild 2 at the moment. You're kind of losing hype a little bit. They're not talking about it. And then, of course, you know, we do a podcast where we talk a little bit more. And then on your channel. And then all of a sudden, they drop the big news and delay it. Of course, in the delay, they did something they haven't really done with prior Zelda delays and actually gave us new footage. It was only for a few seconds, but it was a really, really nice few seconds of new footage. Which kind of still gets into the topic of this, because obviously most reactions to the delay have been surprisingly positive.
They're
I
saying
would say.
your audio is a little robotic.
Oh my God, is it back to robotic?
Yeah, yeah, that's why I was asking earlier because it sounds robotic on my end, but I'm assuming that it was
Oh, it
just
sounds
sounding different
robotic
for
to you
them.
too?
Yes,
Oh my gosh,
yes, it
that's a
does.
whole new problem.
Yeah, I thought the thing is I wasn't saying anything because I thought for everyone else it was okay,
All right, give me a second,
right?
guys. You guys know we have had
Yeah,
audio issues, and I don't know what happened. I don't know why I'm suddenly robotic. That makes
yeah,
no
I don't mind
sense.
talking if I can still kind of like share my thoughts while you figure it out. I don't know if that'll work.
No, I mean, you can go right ahead. Share your thoughts on if you're still whatever, and I'll just
Yeah,
pretend
so
I heard
I
what you
mean,
said.
like, yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of talk about how you're sort of introducing the whole thing about like hype dying for Breath of the Wild too. So like it is kind of interesting timing, right? That I put out that video kind of just talking about, hey, Nintendo's not really talking about this game. They're waiting a really long time to give us information. It's a little unorthodox. Something maybe seems kind of up, but also could just be Nintendo being Nintendo. They're the kings of left field, right? They love throwing us curveballs. But you know, the lack of information on the game, the lack of discussion or news on the game at all, is sort of contributing to perhaps a dampening of my anticipation for the game, right? Just because there's not that much out there. And it's not just that, but it's also that in conjunction with all these other games we have to play, like Kirby, like Cuphead, like Elden Ring, like Triangle Strategy, and then Nintendo Switch Sports in a few weeks, and then Mario Strikers, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So you have all these different games that Nintendo is talking about right now. and they all look really awesome. And there's plenty of things to play right now. So between the lack of information on Breath of the Wild 2 and the abundance of information for other games they're going to be playing sooner, it's not so much that I don't think Breath of the Wild 2 isn't going to be like the best thing ever. I do think it's going to be like the best thing ever, but logically I understand that it has that potential, but from like a feeling perspective, from like an excitement perspective, I am not really being carried right now. And that's just how Nintendo is opting to handle things. They could give us information and get us excited, but they are choosing not to. I'm not judging how they're marketing the game. I'm simply saying. And it's interesting because a couple days later, what happens? They announce that Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed. And then all of a sudden it kind of makes sense. And I know a lot of people are predicting this. You know, I wasn't. But it's also not like a shock either, right? I mean, ultimately I thought it was like a 50-50. I mean, we had people like Parrish Schneider saying the game was on time. Game's been in development since 2017. It's using Breath of the Wild as a foundation. You would think that a development time would be shorter, not longer. And not only is it now longer, it's going to be significantly longer. It's a strange, peculiar situation, I think. But it there it's kind of it still makes sense though. We haven't been getting information. Why? Because they're actually not that close to releasing the game, not as close as we thought or were hoping. So it does kind of make sense in hindsight. Now, Nate, is your audio kind of working again? Or
Well,
you
I have
just
no idea because I can't hear it myself. I know for you
oh
it'll still
well,
sound robotic. For
yeah.
you,
No,
for
it
you it's
sounds
good. It
it sounds better.
well, I didn't do anything to change it for you. I did something to change it for the
Okay,
stream. So if it sounds better for you, that
okay.
is very strange.
Well,
So
okay, it
chat,
still sounds robotic, just like,
it's clean.
you might just be speaking a little louder.
Okay. Left ear is good.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me. Oh yeah, it's okay. I can fix that part. But it sounds good out of the left ear, right, guys? We good?
Yeah, and I can still make out everything you're
No,
saying, so
yeah,
it's
no,
not you
I
don't
know it
have
sounds
to it's
robotic to
yeah.
you. I'm gonna try to fix it for you too, but I wanted to make sure that this was the actual problem
It,
first.
yeah.
So,
I
all
understand
right,
everything you're saying, so I don't think it's necessary.
all right. I will be
You
right
know.
back.
Yeah. But anyway, just I guess just kind of continuing on, right? It's a very in a way, it's disappointing, right? That Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed because, well, we wanted to see it, right? And then, being wrong sucks, but it's whenever it comes to like Breath of the Wild timing, it's just yeah, I'm just gonna be wrong on that. Like I'll just take yeah, whenever I'm predicting something for like when Breath of the Wild 2 is gonna show up, say for like E3 news, I'm just gonna be wrong.
Hey,
Everything
can
else I
you
feel
hear me
pretty good
still?
about. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Ah, good. Is it better for you now too?
It actually is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, this is what happens. Welcome to software. So everything was good, but voice mod updated right before we started the stream, and everything was filtered through voice mod, and they must have changed something on voice mod that screwed up my voice because this is the raw audio. It's obviously working fine. All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on. What you were saying?
Oh no, I was just talking about my W's and L's when it comes to Breath of the Wild 2 predicting. Like when it comes to Breath of the Wild 2 timing, I've just been kind of like off like every time with this game. I think I don't we don't know, but I think obviously the pandemic and things have led to a very different course of development. So that's kind of where it's been very confusing. And I'm sure we're gonna get more into that. But there have been things I've been right about. Like I feel like I want to toot my horn there because I personally have been getting a bit of flack. I don't know if you have or other people have. But like for example, I said that Breath of the Wild 2 was gonna have a huge sky focus before they reveal all the sky stuff. For example, just an example, right? So there are things that I talk about that do end up true, but it has not been timing for Breath of the Wild 2. That's just like no, not even close. But whatever.
Whatever.
Anyway, what they showed though, pretty cool. And it's yeah. So my surface thoughts like there's still so much for us to play, and maybe this delay actually supports idea of hardware coming out early next year.
Interesting. So would you say are
And then
you
there's all the and then the little gameplay snippets definitely give me a whole bunch of ideas for the game itself and where they're
sure?
going with that. But
Are you
I don't want
rehyped
to
then?
share everything immediately. Am I rehyped? Um, I have like 4 Zelda videos planned,
Sure.
so you know,
That I mean that sounds like hype to me.
yeah. There's definitely things that I want to talk about.
So there, so I dropped another Zelda video today, and I have no idea how many more I have coming, guys. The ideas come to me as they come. It just kind of how it flows with me. But I will say this. Obviously, I never got dehyped for the game. I also never expected to see the game again until probably E3 this year. Like I talked about how, oh, maybe at the Game Awards, maybe here, maybe there. But raw expectations were Nintendo doesn't really start the full hype train until they give us an actual release date. And we didn't really have one. We just had a year, which told me, well, they are not going to go ham. Like if it's going to be holiday this year, they'll go ham from summer moving forward. They're not going to want to overshadow Pokemon, Legends Arceus, or Kirby, or Advance Wars. When that was a thing that was coming out, Nintendo Switch Sports, Strikers, etc. Even Splatoon 3. They were like, look, we'll start the hype train this summer when we're hyping up our holiday games. But obviously, that was under the presumption it was still coming this year. And as we talked about on your podcast just on Monday, hey, the official date was 2022. So until we hear otherwise, well, we heard otherwise.
Right. Yeah, that's it.
And I think the reaction to this delay has been mostly positive for, I think, really a few reasons. The first one being we already have a ton of games this year. So we can't be disappointed that this ruins this year because there's so many other games coming out for all platforms, but especially on Switch. It's not like we have a shortage. Now, this might be the only game you cared about this year, and if that's the case, it might bum you out a little bit. But they didn't delay it that far out of the year, and that's the other thing.
It is Animal Crossing like.
Yeah. Like, they're saying spring 2023, and every time they've said spring of X year for any game in the Switch era, it's always been March. It's always been March. It hasn't been the April or the May. It's always been March. Doesn't
even
mean they
for
won't,
Kirby.
Yeah, doesn't mean they won't buck this trend and release it in April or May, which is also technically part of spring. But it's a massive game, and games this big, they like to have land right before the end of the fiscal year because it really bumps those numbers for them when they're just about to go talk to investors. So it's a strategic move as well to release it in March, and we've seen them do this with a number of major games. So there was Animal Crossing last year, wasn't a Nintendo one, but they had Monster Hunter Rise that sold over 8 million. That was a big deal, especially in Japan. So Nintendo likes to have a major game in March, and this is likely going to be that game. And I think the fact that we probably only have to wait 3 at maximum 5 months into 2023 has made people realize, hey, you know what? Before we didn't even have a release timing. Now we know this is when it's coming. And they were more firm this time on saying it will be spring 2023, not just 2023.
No language of aiming for 2022, but it's a more specific season, spring 2023, to your point. And I do want to say, but kind of speaking more to the idea of a March release seeming more likely, say besides the whole point of it coming out in time for the end of the fiscal year, which is reason enough alone, right? But with Kirby, there was plenty of reason to think that if of any spring sort of target release, that would maybe come out a little bit later because they already had Triangle Strategy coming out in March, right?
Sure.
Like, so there's plenty of reason to maybe think it would come out in April or May, but no, they still have it coming out in March. And you know, I thought that maybe Kirby wouldn't be the kind of game that they would really want to save for March to be like a big release, but this is actually just Kirby's proven to be fairly significant. You know, like maybe it's not a 30 million seller, but this could go down as maybe a 10 million seller once everything's said and done.
Well, I mean,
like
launch sales are reportedly over 2 million worldwide.
Strong start,
which is a strong start at the end of the month. And plus, they had Triangle Strategy at the beginning of the month, and I think just those two combined games, I feel like, well, not an Animal Crossing, well, not a Monster Hunter Rise. It is something big. I think, ideally they might have wanted something like Nintendo Switch Sports this month, but they want to make sure that Kirby got its time in the sun and then kick off the next fiscal year with what's probably going to be a pretty strong seller, so long as they don't screw it up and actually market it correctly. We'll see. I know the positive reception that came out of the trial for Nintendo Switch Sports. So that's always good. But yeah, what's interesting too, and I've seen a bunch of people bring this up, and I just actually looked. If it comes out in March, there happens to be a particular date of importance that happens to land on a normal release day, and that is March 3rd of 2023. Lands on a Friday, which is when Nintendo releases games, and would be a nice little convenient bow on saying anniversary of Switch, anniversary of the first game. Here's the second game. Again, not saying it is going to come out March 3rd. They could do it later in the month. They could. Or they could say,
I think people have been noting that March 3rd falls on a Friday, so there's a chance that it could be then.
Yeah, that's the key. Is that it lands on a Friday. If it was like a Tuesday, it's not happening, guys. They release on Fridays. But it is a Friday. It does conveniently line up for the 6th anniversary. Would be really, really cool. I will note, however, that the way Nintendo has timed all their other releases that are this big for March has never been the beginning. It's been the middle or towards the end, so there could be spillover into the beginning of the next fiscal year. Now, they might fully believe it doesn't matter for this game. It can go ahead and send 10, 50 million in the first month and continue to sell afterwards and not be a problem. So they might not care about that. They might care more about the anniversary and making it just this really cool big event out of it, because Nintendo does do that sometimes. We saw what they did for the first Breath of the Wild and how big of a deal they made out of that with the marketing and the E3 and everything. And they could be doing that again for this and say, look, we're going to make a big deal of the fact that the Switch has been out for 6 years. It's at 118 million, just cross Game Boy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they could make a huge deal out of it if they want to. And I think they will, because I think they probably spent another $300 million making this game based on how long it's been in development for, like the original.
Yeah.
So
I do want something I want to point out that maybe something that perhaps strengthened the possibility of both Breath of the Wild and Switch coming out early in March 3rd was because they wanted to get that out as soon as possible, right? Because they didn't have anything really significant to sell at that time. Yeah. So getting it out as soon as possible was, ideal for them. So that's why March 3rd was more likely. This time around, there isn't necessarily as much of a rush to get it out. In terms of we're talking about hardware here. Like, there's no need to get out new hardware at the very beginning of March to maximize, its time out there. Like, they could wait a couple of weeks. It's not going to really change too much.
We did have a super chat come in from Midnight Naomi. Thank you so much for the $21. I appreciate the super chat, Midnight Naomi, but I am not restarting the podcast for you.
Hey, but that's half my name, though. Maybe on my channel.
Yeah. So we're not going to restart the podcast, but you can rewind once we're all done. I don't think you can rewind live. I really don't know how YouTube works with that.
I mean, it was mostly just audio issues and sort of...
You didn't really miss anything of importance besides the robotic voice and recapping games we've been playing lately. We're basically on the first topic right now, so that's...
Yeah.
And with good audio, so that's what matters. So I just wanted to note, obviously, that it's very interesting that March 3rd happens to land on a Friday. For anyone who thinks that Nintendo's going to care about that date, there is at least a chance. There's a chance. It is spring, technically, and it is, a Friday. That being said, obviously you brought up, the potential of releasing some sort of new hardware with this, whether it's the Pro or, next gen. Yeah, I don't really think we're getting next gen yet. Could be wrong on that front. I don't really know. I don't work at Nintendo. I don't really know what their plans are. I just know what reports and rumors and things that exist and the leak stuff from NVIDIA that shows they clearly have something in the works that seems to line up with all of the reports last year from dev units. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to get scrapped. I don't know anything. I don't work at Nintendo. I don't work at NVIDIA. I don't have any contacts at NVIDIA or Nintendo. But what I can say is I personally don't think they're launching new hardware with this game. Now, that doesn't mean new hardware won't already be around. It's possible that they release new hardware this holiday. And this is just the first big game after the holidays that pushes the hardware, or at least proves the hardware. Now, this assumes that there will be new hardware. I don't even know if there will be. I did note in a video today that set aside the new footage, the new old footage, which is the same footage they showed last year, if you put it side by side with the old footage, it looks just a little bit sharper. Now, there are many reasons this could be the case. It could just be better compression by YouTube this time around. Can't rule that out. It could just be more optimization. What we saw at E3 2021 was like
Mm-hmm.
9 months old. So now we're looking at a year newer build. So it's just been more polished. It could be because of new hardware. It could also be that, hey, they decided from the time we saw that footage last year, at some point in development to today, that, hey, we're going to use FSR because Nintendo's using it on a different game, a first-party made game in Nintendo Switch Sports. So maybe Nintendo is kind of doing this whole, we're going to start using this on everything that's going to be on the original Switch because it makes sense. It makes games look better. If you guys see some of the screenshots that Nintendo of America has been posting for Nintendo Switch Sports, they magically look crystal clear. Perfect 1080p, lots of details, which is not what we're used to seeing from something like that.
Hey, Nate, people are saying that you're too quiet and I'm too loud, so they're suggesting that you lower me slightly.
What? I could just talk louder, baby.
You just talk louder.
I mean, I've turned my mic up, but, there's only so much I can go up with it before it starts to clip really bad, and I don't want it to clip really bad.
Record on my mic, my gain is like near the bottom.
Yeah,
So.
and just to be clear, if the audio is like mismatched and uneven, but we both sound clear, just go ahead and watch our podcast later when it gets re-uploaded to the podcast channel because all the audio gets leveled out in editing. So it won't matter for that. All that matters is that I'm not robotic. That's what I really care the most about is I'm not robotic. Now, I will note for things like our E3 show coming up and stuff like that this summer, yes, we will try our best to make sure the audio is leveled. In fact, I'm going to be using a mixer that's going to have our guest audio come in, my audio, and we can literally hard mix everything. From my current setup today, I cannot adjust his audio. I can only slightly adjust my audio. So that's just the way it goes. Unless you guys want to give me thousands of dollars for new equipment, which, I appreciate it, but no thanks. I'm good.
Now you're too loud, apparently.
Now I'm too loud. See, this is what happens. There's no middle ground.
I have no problem with anything I'm hearing.
Yeah, there's no middle ground. There's no middle ground. See? All I did was turn it up one notch from what people were saying. And look, now I turned it down a notch, and I'll suddenly be too quiet now. See, there's no winning. You get what you get, and you stop throwing a fit. If it bothers you guys, I'm sorry. I do the best I can. I'm a one-man show. All right? I don't have an audio person behind the scenes running things. All right. Let's get back into the actual conversation at hand. Sorry, guys. It's really frustrating. Every week, it's always something with the audio. And now that I'm sounding clear, people are just complaining about the volumes. It's not going to be perfect. All right? We just need to accept that as long as the audio sounds clear, that's my goal. That's why we have a podcast channel, so you can get the leveled out audio there or listen to the audio version, which will also have it leveled out. Live, this is a raw recording. This is what it's like raw, baby. This is like a live studio show, but the actual production comes later where all this stuff is fixed up. All right, that being said, I want
to steal your background, just for the record.
Which one? Which background?
The whole Nintendo Prime light up thing. It's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it was also pretty damn expensive.
Well, I could settle for the Wind Waker stained glass stuff you have on both sides.
Oh, I know.
I have a poster like that one, like one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just noticed the one poster is a little too low too. Anyways, I can fix that later. That thing behind me, guys, that you see in the video version, that was made by the same person who made all of our E3 stuff last year, all of our backgrounds and our intros and all that. And I paid quite a pretty penny because he makes it all by hand. And it takes a lot of talent to do what he does. And then on top of that, obviously, is the TV that it's on wasn't exactly cheap because we needed a big, nice TV that could handle various lighting situations and not just shoot a bunch of glare back at you. So there's that as well. There's a special coating on this TV and quite the investment in this set to be really frustrated that I've yet to have a single podcast episode come out that kicks off perfect. There's always some problem, typically with audio. What a pain in my ass. Oh my gosh. It gets so frustrating to the point that it almost makes me want to cancel the podcast sometimes and be like, hey, you know what? No podcast for you. Get out of here. But guys, It's going to get perfect eventually. You just got to give it some time. You have to understand a lot of my frustration, guys, is that in building this whole new studio, including this set, there's been thousands and thousands of dollars spent. The savings has been emptied. So you guys think you're frustrated when the audio is not working right. Imagine how I feel. Knowing how much money I invested and knowing that there's still issues, 6 episodes into using this set. What are you going to do? I just want it perfect by E3. That's my only goal. I literally told Yulia and Eric just yesterday, my only goal is that when we hit live for E3, we don't have these problems. If we can get it perfect by then, it's all worth the suffering. Which is funny because I'm completely changing the audio setup by then. So, lovely. All right. Let's get back into what we were talking about with Zelda. So, yeah, I don't know that we're going to get any hardware at all. And if we do, I don't know they're going to time it around with Zelda or not. They could. I don't think they need to. I don't think it's going to hurt. I will say this. If they're going to time a hardware release with Zelda, I no longer expect there to be any special edition Switches because they tend not to do that when they're launching brand new hardware. There's no special edition anything when it comes to the actual stuff. And we've been waiting almost 6 years for special edition Switch, and all we've gotten are Skyward Sword Joy-Con, which are cool. That's fine. But I would like a Zelda-themed Switch. Now, setting that aside, that's all personal wishes. Again, it could be AMD, FSR, super resolution. They could just be doing that, making it better. It could just be a further along in the build. There's so many reasons that the footage could look a little bit better, a little bit sharper. All I know, in the end, is I just really want this game. I'm glad I now know when it's coming. I'm surprised that they actually showed a snippet of new gameplay. That caught me off guard.
That was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Caught me off guard. Entirely off guard. Like, they were showing old footage. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is how they always delay Zeldas. They show a little bit of the footage they've already shown. We'll see you at this future date, and that's it. But the fact that they were willing to show more of it, one, tells me that's not the last time we're seeing this game this year. We're seeing it again. I don't know when, but we are going to see this game again. Might not be till September. Might not be till September.
Probably.
I think it's probably going to be E3, and then they'll bring it up at the Game Awards, and then because that'll be after most of the holiday releases.
This year's Game Awards is going to have that. It's another interesting thing to consider. Perhaps the reason Nintendo didn't have a presence at the Game Awards because they would have wanted to have Breath of the Wild 2, but at that point they knew that the game probably wasn't going to make holiday, and maybe that's why they just didn't put anything in the show.
Yeah. I want to thank Jesse. Hold on, let me see here. We had a new member join, Jesse Beholder. Thank you for joining the member of the board of directors here. And then we had a $5 super chat for Paint Fat Purple. Just saying thanks for all the hard work. Yeah, sorry. I'm not actually frustrated with you guys. When I see the audio complaints, it's me. I'm frustrated with me and not being better prepared or having a better testing methodology, because here's the problem with my lives. Everything can work, and the moment I hit go live, it all changes. And I can't test that without actually being live. What's fun is, during E3, it's already been decided that we're going to have kind of this half hour or 15-minute or so like preamble before we're officially live. So the stream will be live, and we'll have our countdown, but then we'll like pop in for part of the countdown and be like, hey, let's test the audio. How you guys doing? Blah, blah, blah. So we can actually test it live before we cut to the official show. But that's something I'm doing for that. I thought about doing that for everything, but it's a really complex setup to do that. So we're just going to save it for the biggest show of the year for us. But thanks for the super chats, guys. You guys are awesome. Again, I'm not frustrated with you guys. Frustrated with me. David Marsh also did a $4.99 super chat earlier. I want to make sure I get to all these quick. Said, I commented this a couple times in normal chats, so sorry for being repetitive. March 3rd is technically still winter. Technically, yes. If you want to look at, God, what is it? What's the official start of spring? Like March 25th or something? I can't remember when the official calendar date of spring is.
I don't think they look at it like that, though. I think they look at it as...
Well, they definitely have with prior releases that they said, oh, it's coming spring of this year. Oh, spring of 2019. Oh, okay, it's Animal Crossing and it lands in March. Like,
yeah.
I think they just look
at
March and spring.
Splatoon 3 could come out in September. It probably won't because Xenoblade is coming out then, but,
Yeah, I mean, it could because technically summer leaks into September, but it's all... I think they look at it more as what month the spring begin. They consider that part of spring. It's kind of like their fiscal year. It's not a calendar. It's not the
Yeah,
calendar
Splatoon
year.
3 is coming out in July or August. Like that I feel pretty confident in saying. Unless it's delayed. If it's
Oh,
not unless it's delayed. I don't think it'll be
I
delayed
don't think
though.
it'll be delayed. The last
Yeah.
showing of it looked pretty confident. That game's going well.
I mean, at this point they've given us what, 3 like
They've showed off a
multi-minute
mode. They
trailers?
showed off a mode. They've showed off a bunch of gameplay. They showed off the town. They showed off the beginning of time, like when you set your character's hair and eyes. And apparently we have a pet now that you get to set his hair. Like, yeah, they've clearly shown that this game is
We
extremely far along.
we saw more from Splatoon 3 in the first trailer than we've seen for all of the stuff we've seen for Breath of the Wild 2.
March 23rd, people are saying, or March 20th. Yeah, it's something like March 20th is the first day of spring. Okay, yeah. So, and again, it could release at the end of March, like Kirby.
Yeah,
It's
I just don't think they look at it like that. I think
yeah, I
any
don't think
time
so
in
either.
March is spring for them.
But we'll see.
Um,
That's the thing. We'll see.
yeah,
We don't
yeah,
actually
for
know.
sure.
We just know it's coming in spring, sometime
Well,
between March and the
actually,
end of May.
so there's a thing I think it should be considered. I recently put out a video questioning if this is even the last delay for Breath of the Wild 2. I think it is, right? But I also thought Breath of the Wild 2 would come out this year. So,
I think it is because I think, and this is just a presumption, Nintendo's going to have new hardware next gen 2024, or at least talk about it in 2024. And they're not going to want this game they spent $300 million to only have one full year on the market before people are looking to the next. They're going to want almost 2, and March still gives them kind of that ability to do that. Now, again, it'll be up-resed or whatever for the next platform. I fully expect that. They're going to find a way to repackage it and resell it with the DLC or whatever else. But I do think it's probably the last delay for the game. Now, Zelda's had multiple delays before, so it's not like this is unheard of. But they've never been like this
this is the
specific.
first public delay for Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, there could have been other ones, but
First public delay. Internally, I mean, I have a hard time believing they anticipate the game coming out this late if they showed us a trailer back in 2019. I don't
yeah,
think
I do think
I don't think
COVID
so.
played a big role in this game not coming out probably when they planned. You look at some of the lighter years of 2020 and 2021, you could see where they probably thought Breath of the Wild was going to be one of the big games. Like even in 2020, start with Animal Crossing and with Breath of the Wild. Oh, we don't have that? Well, let's have, Age of Calamity. Like, okay, but that's not nearly as big a deal. And maybe it was supposed to be Age of Calamity then, Breath of the Wild 2 the following year. So there's a whole lot
I
of
feel like I almost want to say COVID has impacted the development cycle for Breath of the Wild 2, not by 1 year, but maybe even by almost 2.
yeah. I mean, it's possible. There's a lot that changes when you go from everyone's in the same room to now everyone's at home doing remote, passing files around on a server, trying to figure this out. They can't, they got to Zoom call people or whatever app they were using to communicate. And, it's just, by the way, it's not because they don't have excellent internet infrastructure in Japan. They have like the best internet infrastructure in the world. It's just, it's just a lot different. Ideas flow differently when it's just online when you're used to being in person all the time. And maybe
Let me
they're
throw
back
out
in
an
person
idea
now,
for you. I think you may have talked about that. Actually, a number of people have talked about this, but a lot of people, before it was Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed, there was a lot of people assuming it would be delayed because it's Zelda.
Yep.
Like
Always
you,
gets
yeah, you
delayed.
assumed,
And
right?
when they announced it, it didn't feel like a confident. Like we're aiming.
Well, I mean, they did do that.
You're already putting doubt in our minds. You're not going to hit. When you say
Yeah.
it.
But with that, maybe we see something else come out for the holiday beyond what we know. The thing that people have alluded to is 3D Mario.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But
I think if we get another 3D Mario on the Switch and we're getting Zelda early next year, it'll be a holiday title next year. It's like their last hurrah title for it. I mean, they could hold it back and make it launch. They haven't had a lot of success launching platforms of Mario games, so I'm not sure that they would want to hold it back, especially if they're still pushing Switch sales, and especially if they do have, a Switch Pro or whatever out there, then they're clearly, hey, 2024, screw that. 2027? I have no idea if that system is real and comes out and is just a mid-gen refresh.
This is what I think Nintendo's lineup is for this year. I think with Breath of the Wild 2 getting delayed, the games we see get announced in conjunction with what we already know for the second half are a couple remasters. We see Metroid Prime Remake, which might have been coming regardless.
Yeah, that might have been coming
Hold on.
regardless.
I got my water here.
Maybe.
Thank
We
you.
hope. We've been hearing about, it's first the trilogy, now it's just Metroid Prime 1, and nothing's ever been announced, and nothing still is announced. And we keep seeing, obviously, what looks like very weird hires at Retro Studios over and over again for Metroid Prime 4, and
Yeah.
then maybe some weird reports around that game's having problems, which, again, I'm not really surprised, because anything that Retro Studios has developed since Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze apparently has had problems, hence the game hasn't come out since then. But that doesn't, by the way, this doesn't mean Metroid Prime 4 won't be awesome. I think it's become almost a money hole for Nintendo, and they're going to see it through, and they're going to fund it until it comes out. Not sure it's going to be profitable for them when that's all said and done. But, at this point, I think
I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to sell really well.
I think it's going to sell really well. But selling really well for Metroid is like selling what Kirby's going to sell. And Kirby had significantly less money spent on it at this point than Metroid Prime 4 has, with a Western development studio with high salaries, high turnover, and the talent they're bringing in. By the way, they brought in a lot of big talent.
An investment. I think it's an investment though, right? I don't think they're looking at this as a one-off.
I hope
think
not.
this is
this
is a retooling and a revamping of Retro Studios as a whole.
Maybe.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, you're optimistic. I'm pessimistic as hell about Retro Studios. They lost almost all of their talent, almost all of their management, and they've been rebuilding and failing to get projects out the door, which I've seen so many Western studios go this route. Once they lose their talent, they have a really hard time getting a game out the door. Nintendo's refusing to let them get the game that they're working on out the door because it doesn't match the quality of prior releases. So, Nintendo, hey, when Retro Studios brings out a game, there's a certain reputation with that. We don't want a game coming out if it's not going to meet that reputation.
Right. But I think Nintendo has done enough to give us confidence that it's going to be fine. One, to your point, even though a lot of talent has changed at Retro Studios has a history of always coming out with quality. Problem is, because of that, to your point, they probably don't bring to completion a lot of their ideas because they're not up to snuff.
Plus,
but also
with how positive Metroid Dread was taken, it would not be good for Prime 4 to come out and disappoint.
No, Metroid Prime 4 has to be Space Zelda. That's what it's got to be.
It has to. Its expectations after Dread, especially, are just
right. No, and I think I feel pretty good about it, to be totally frank with you. But just to finish my point here.
Yep.
Then look at pretty much every project that Nintendo has sort of invested in. They've all panned out very well. Like Metroid Dread, for example, there was reason to think that maybe that wouldn't be very good. But Metroid Dread is arguably one of the best Metroid games ever made, right? They did it, and that was with a Spanish developer, Mercury Steam, which did okay with Samus Returns. But before Samus Returns, they were working on the Castlevania games, and they were some of the worst Castlevania games ever made, right? So, there was cause for concern with that project, yet they hit it out of the park, right? I understand it's HAL, but Kirby and the Forgotten Land transition to 3D, they did it seamlessly. Breath of the Wild, Nintendo's first true modern foray into open world games, they created the best one ever. Mario Odyssey, the first a return to form for 3D sandbox Marios, they hit it out of the park. But 3D platforms weren't a thing until Odyssey they kind of just resurrected the genre.
When's the last time Retro Studios gave us a game that wasn't a side scroller?
They've only given us Donkey Kong Country and Metroid Prime, so.
Okay. Well, they technically have a few other games before, way back in the day when Nintendo decided to buy them. But
well, so the thing about that is that Retro Studios was Iguana Entertainment.
We haven't had a new 3D game made by Retro Studios since Wii, which that's a long time ago, over a decade ago.
Yep. So but also Kensuke Tanabe is overseeing the project.
We've had multiple 3D Mario games and 3D Zelda games, and Maybe not multiple 3D Kirby games, but obviously tons of Kirby games. Like when we're comparing Nintendo's best of the best development studios, which really haven't missed a beat in general, we could argue, well, okay, no Zelda's ever sold as well as Breath of the Wild. No, but Zelda's been a staple that consistently sells 4 or 5 million plus every single time, and has been a game they continue to invest in. Okay, yeah, Mario Odyssey is one of the best selling Marios ever, but they've had massive Mario sales every single generation, except for Wii U, I suppose, where I guess Mario Kart may be the only thing that really sold probably what they consider to be well, besides Splatoon, which obviously for a new IP on a platform that nobody bought, actually, I think it sold like 4 million. That's crazy on a platform that nobody bought that sold 4 million. So I think they kind of knew we're on to something. We got to get another one out for Switch on an actual popular platform and see what happens. And obviously it blew up to like 15 million.
Nate,
Yeah.
Metroid Prime 4 is going to be amazing. Don't worry.
I'm sorry.
It.
I'm going to worry. Most of the team that made the original Prime trilogy are not there. A lot of the developers they brought on worked on entirely different kinds of games that have nothing to do with Metroid.
So the rumor is, right, that the Metroid Prime remake is also being made by Retro Studios. So, I think that's going to go a long ways towards benefiting the development process for Prime 4 as well. It kind of seems to be following almost like a similar sort of pattern as Mercury Steam working on Samus Returns, a remake of a previous 2D Metroid to then make the full-on Metroid Dread. Right now, the timing of it's very different, but
maybe faith will be restored if the Metroid Prime remake ever comes out. Because again, we've been hearing about remade Metroid Prime games for 5 years before we even knew Metroid Prime 4 existed, and they still aren't here, and they're still not announced. Until they actually launch a damn game that's good, I'm not going to have faith because we haven't had anything since Tropical Freeze. That's the fact. Nothing since Tropical Freeze, nothing 3D since Wii. You could argue they've never put out a bad game. You're right. They've also never taken this long to put a game out. So something's wrong. Something's clearly wrong inside the studio, and until I see a game come out that reaffirms our belief in this studio.
Well, the way I look at it, I look at it, this whole situation as kind of like taking what Retro Studios was as like a foundation, like the company culture and such, and totally revamping it and basically creating a new sort of studio in Texas. Like that's like that. Basically, I just see this as
rebuilding the studio. Yep.
Yeah, they're basically just creating a new Texas studio.
But how do we know that studio is going to be as good as the old studio?
Because, well, we don't, but
most Western studios flop. When they new studios that pop up, most of them flop. So it's actually kind of scary to think they're rebuilding.
If Nintendo's investing in it, I think it's because they know it's going to be good. They will make sure it's good.
Or are they investing in it? They thought this game would have been out a long time ago. It's still not out. And they're just, the backlash over canceling it would be too big. So
it's going to be good. Don't worry. You'll see. Right. But the point I want to get at, though, the point I want to get at, though, right, is that I think the two games that are going to kind of help to fill up the lineup for the second half of the year, even though it's already a pretty good lineup as it is going to be the Metroid Prime remake, remaster, and another Zelda game, because we need another Zelda game, because we get a Zelda game every year. And I said it before, and I think you'll probably agree with me. Nintendo's been saving Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD for a rainy day. I think this is that rainy day, or that rainy year. Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed, so there's a good chance that it comes out for maybe the summertime, like late summer or something. We see Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD. If not that, I honestly, that's the only thing I can kind of see. Because if Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out like March, that's not even that much. That's not too far off. So like, I don't see them coming out with like a 2D Zelda, for example, to hold us over just for a few months. I don't see that, but I could see like a Twilight Princess or Wind Waker HD.
Okay.
Unless it's like a Four Swords thing, which is kind of like a smaller project. I could see that.
So obviously, with the delay, we've had something Zelda release every year now for like 8-9 straight years or whatever. It's insane. So it kind of feels like obviously there should be a replacement Zelda something this year. I don't think it's too soon to consider another Warriors game. I don't think they want to do another one until a new mainline Zelda comes out. You could argue there could be a 2D Zelda in the works, potentially, I would presume, by Grezzo, who helped me remake Link's Awakening. Obviously, he's worked on Zelda games in the past. They were the main developer on Triforce Heroes. So they could obviously have a top-down. When we say 2D, we mean top-down. It's obviously not technically 2D anymore. But a top-down Zelda game could be in the works and could be ready to go. They usually don't take as long to develop.
Gameplay reminiscent of before the 3D era.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
But they never got rid of it during the 3D era either. So, like, it's just top-down Zelda. Just call it top-down Zelda. That's what it is. It's got that isometric perspective. That's just the way it is. But, okay, I do think there probably is one in the works. I think Link's Awakening was probably a testing ground for them, and it probably, I presume, was good enough sales that they were going to say, hey, let's go forward and keep making these, even if the main Zelda
pretty
team...
good.
Yeah,
even
if the main Zelda team isn't making it, I mean, it could be one of the main Zelda directors working on it to make sure that it fits in line with everything. But I don't know that the main Zelda team's doing it, because a game like Breath of the Wild 2 and games of that ilk, if they keep this open world concept, even if they don't stick with the Breath of the Wild style, they keep open world moving forward. I think Nintendo has realized it takes a massive team to do games like this and a lot of money, which Nintendo is usually not the company to do that. But then they saw huge returns when they did it. So they're obviously going to be a lot more willing to keep doing it moving forward as long as the sales are there. So I think the main Zelda team's pretty much going to almost always work on the next big console experience, whatever that is. At least for the foreseeable future until sales dip or something. But I do think that something Zelda could come out. Obviously, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess HD, both packaged together, independent, I have no idea, could come out. It's one reason why I actually put this second Wind Waker poster up today in kind of anticipation that it would be kind of neat to see Wind Waker HD kind of dropped. I think it looks phenomenal. I think it'll be amazing on the OLED panel. Absolutely pop on the OLED panel on the Switch OLED. So I think it's a great summertime sailing kind of game. It could drop between, between Mario Strikers and Splatoon 3, or Splatoon 3 and Bayonetta 3. Or,
say Splatoon 3 comes out August. I could see it come out in July.
Yeah, something like that. Like, it could be something that I don't know when they tease it. You could argue, they're just going to wait till E3. No, I think this is an announcement they'd probably drop before then. Unless it's not coming till the fall. If it's going to be a fall game, like October, okay, fine. Then maybe they wait till E3 to announce that game's coming. But because
these are ports of ports. Like, I don't know if they save that for the holiday line.
Yeah, I mean,
not to mention, I think you want to space out a little bit between that and Breath of the Wild 2. Like, I think they want at least half a year.
Maybe.
So I think summer,
and
early
again,
fall at the latest.
This presumes that this is happening. This is coming. We have no idea. We've heard rumors for a long time. We've heard reporters like Jeff Grubb swear by it, that these games are done, they're ported, they're ready to go. Nintendo's just sitting on them, and it's their rainy day.
If
we
that's
drop
true,
it when we need it. We drop it when we need it. If the
rumor's true, this is it.
But it could also be argued, is it really a rainy day when they already got like 7 more major games coming the rest of the year? This feels like such a packed year. Does it really feel like we need a Wind Waker or Twilight Princess?
I guess it's just more of a appeasing Zelda fan kind of thing.
It's more of a sorry we delayed. Here you go. And I almost halfway expected when they announced this delay that they're at the end they're gonna be like, to apologize for the delay, we're gonna be dropping these games, coming up here in July.
Yeah, well, I guess the problem with that is they wanted to focus the update on just the one thing. Because at that point you're making almost like a mini Zelda Direct.
I mean, is it really a mini Direct to just say here's a trailer for Wind Waker, Twilight Princess HD games that already exist?
They gave us a Breath of the Wild 2 release date, and they also gave us a little bit of new footage, and then if they also announced 2 more Zelda games coming to Switch.
Do you think those really are going to overshadow Breath of the Wild 2?
I'm just saying it's just something in terms of messaging, because this is meant as more of it's a development update, right? Like, it's more of a somber sort of thing. So it's just in terms of messaging.
But ending a somber thing with something exciting is something Nintendo likes to do.
Well, that's why they gave us new footage.
You can argue that, yeah. I mean, we haven't talked about that footage much yet, but it's. I think again, they could release it this year. They could not. I don't know that Breath of the Wild needs to be replaced. I think there's already a ton of games. Like 3D Mario is great. I don't really know where you slot it in. There was already a lot of debates on where the hell you slot Zelda in, considering all the games coming. Because remember, we still don't have release dates for Sparks of Hope. We still don't have release date for Bayonetta 3.
Well, some people think those games are getting delayed too. Like
They think, but nothing's been announced, and we're getting into what, the 4th month of the year, and nothing's been announced yet.
I think we learned. Think we're gonna know at E3. Like that's pretty much it. This June we're gonna We're gonna know.
And Sparks of Hope again could be a summer game. Could be.
We're legit like 9. What we're like 9 weeks away.
I think this confirms that Gen 9 Scarlet Violet. It's November. I don't think there's any debate anymore. That's their big November holiday game.
Yeah.
And after that, if you look at what they already have, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that's September. I presume Bayonetta 3 is probably going to drop in October. At that point,
Prime.
At that point, what else do we really need? We're kind of set up. If you look from like now to then, we're kind of set up with almost a massive game. Whether or not the game, Bayonetta 3, it's not going to be that game that's going to sell 10 million copies, but they have a major exclusive game dropping basically every month the rest of the year.
I also think it's probably going to be like another like Nintendo IP that will be announced.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing, do we know everything coming this year? It's very weird if we could say on March 30th, we know every game coming.
There's no way.
That's like never happened. It's like never happened.
I think we probably know the biggest ones, but I could see maybe Nintendo announces like a wave race.
But you did mention 3D Mario, and that's a big boy.
Yeah, I was throwing that out there. I don't think it's that.
I was gonna say that's a pretty big one to just kind of skate over there. But
is it conceivable? I think it's conceivable, but I don't.
And now they got to consider they got to reslot in Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. That's got to get reslotted in at some point whenever the war is over. It's going to be whenever the war is over and there's been enough
Are they really
time.
going to wait that long is it going to be that long?
I mean, the whole reason they didn't release it's because of the war. So I would presume as long as the war is going on, they're not going to do it or not going to release it.
What if it I mean, I don't want to.
I know war is a tough thing. We obviously would wish it would just be over.
Yeah, but I don't even want to like kind of address it because it could come off as insensitive, right? But like sometimes wars can last. God forbid, but they can last for years, right? So like, do you just not release the game? I don't think
it's tough.
I don't think you do that.
It's tough, and I think the next Call of Duty game is going to be facing a lot of the same questions, even on a bigger scale, because it's such a big war-based game. And by the way, I don't even know if there is going to be a Call of Duty coming out this year, so they might be able to skirt the whole issue this year, anyways. But it's very interesting times we're in with any sort of war-like game. Any sort of military-like game. I just wish for the best. Don't like seeing people die. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
So, but besides that, which again we don't know when that's coming. I've always said maybe 2023 is a safer time to maybe think that they might bring that out. Maybe it gets canned altogether, and then you end up feeling really bad for the devs that worked hard to get it to come over. But we'll see. I do think, though, that there are so many big games this year, they don't have to announce anything this year. What's actually kind of exciting, at least to me, with so many big games known, like when we get E3 and we get the September Direct or whatever happens moving forward, whatever Nintendo drops their next big news dump, kind of feels like we need to hear about 2023 games. Because
any surprises?
Yeah, like we know,
I
mean, we need to advertise this year's games. Absolutely, blow us out. We all know Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is going to have its own dedicated 45-minute direct where they tell us way too much about the game because that's what they've done with every Xenoblade. So like there's going to be advertising campaigns and things in place that are going to push each of these games. Sans a big general direct, but it kind of feels like the big general directs. They'll tease.
Are they going to give us? I think Nintendo's done with. I could be wrong. I think it depends on the game, but I haven't seen any major like game specific directs recently. Like they didn't do one for Kirby. They didn't do one for Metroid Dread. They didn't do one for Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Like they have like overview trailers that kind of do the same thing, but they're shorter and more bite-sized. They're not full-scale directs.
Yeah, well, I mean, and a lot of that was under prior management. We also had COVID kind of hard stop directs altogether.
I don't know. I think my opinion. I think the game-specific directs. Well, I'm not saying they're gone altogether. It depends on the game. Like something like Animal Crossing.
We had a Monster Hunter specific direct. That was just last year.
Sure.
I mean, I was a third
Yeah.
party game, but it was still technically labeled as a direct officially on Nintendo's channel.
I don't know.
So I don't know that they're gone. I think they're just not going to be happening as frequently.
They're
It's going to be
selective.
saved for like very specific games. Like I could see Zelda having one because Zelda's had one before. I could see, I don't know if Gen 9 is going to need one, but they do so many specific Pokemon events that are just about Pokemon in general.
Well, what they do is that they just give you news for Pokemon like every week leading
Yeah,
up to the
no,
release.
it's like it's just a nonstop flow, which is great for Pokemon fans. Unless you
Yeah.
don't want to get spoiled, then you can just stop
You
paying
learned a
attention.
little bit. Pokemon fans. You kidding me? Everyone's waiting until they get data mined so they can analyze
No,
like every like
not everyone.
thing.
There are people that get mad about the data mine leaks.
I mean, like, yeah, I personally prefer
But,
to play my Pokemon games and discover new species while I'm in it, but that's just not what happens.
but yeah, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is coming next year. My excitement level never went anywhere. I was always hyped. I'm going to continue to be hyped. They showed us new footage, which to me, that was a confidence move. Giving us that little snippet when they've never done that delay in a Zelda game before, and then literally saying spring, not 2023, and then showing that footage is like, no, we're confident. Like this thing's landing spring next year. It's happening. Don't worry about it. Here's some more footage just to kind of show you that we know what the hell we're doing. We need more development time because of the vastness of the world, and it's not just the world; it's also the mechanics and the this and the that, without
Well,
really
I like
explaining
how they
any of it.
confirmed a lot of speculation. I'm pretty sure we've talked about, but I've definitely had this speculation that like it's that they are expanding Hyrule beyond just the skies and the land itself. Like there's more to it. That's an implication of underground exploration, which could line up with that whole duality idea. They're underwater exploration, perhaps parallel universes, perhaps the upper like atmosphere or stratosphere of the world, so it's almost space-like. Like there's so many different things they could do in terms of expansion,
Possibilities.
and then literally could just expand the borders. They could just go beyond the literal map. Like there's a lot of different things they could do because like in Breath of the Wild, you see land in the background, you see islands in the background, and if you look at the map for Zelda 2, technically the Hyrule we usually explore is just a small portion of the entire world. So, from a lore perspective, there's tons of land there they could totally utilize. Assuming they don't just like, create just new land or retcon it. Like they can do that too. So, that was exciting to see. And as you also noted, like they didn't just talk about like in terms of world, but also like mechanics and gameplay functionalities. Like what could that be, right? Like we've seen the patents for like Link having different maneuvers in the sky, and we've seen like the vertical phase through terrain jump, and then we already know about the time pausing stasis object thing, and we have to assume there's going to be more, right? Like, and yet all those things can have tremendous sort of applications and effects on the physics engine, which was already pretty sophisticated, and all of these things can stack and create a myriad of more potentialities, right? Like it kind of it has an exponential effect. You know what I mean?
And then what happens is
So it
Zelda in certain scenes is using the Sheikah Slate, and suddenly you can interact also with the crap she's doing with the Sheikah Slate. And now you have to consider all the old shit with the new shit and having it work together. And this is
it
all stuff
can
we
get
don't know
pretty
about. We don't know about because the Sheikah
and
Slate
and
hasn't
hence
gone anywhere.
the
Zelda
6 year
hasn't.
development cycle
Yeah.
because it's all about making sure the physics engine doesn't explode.
That'd be sweet though. Like not the
Yeah,
engine exploding, but just the possibilities. Like I know that it's very little words and it's hard to read into it, but like Mr. Aonuma, he feels like he's super confident about this game. That like this is the biggest thing we've ever done. You thought we did big? No. This
I think
this is beyond.
yeah. I think that and that kind of also goes into the whole waning excitement thing because it's gonna take a lot to really like outdo Breath of the Wild, right? Like when we got Breath of the Wild, it was this big, fresh, new thing, and what we've seen so far just kind of looks like more of the same, save for the sky stuff. So I think with Nintendo and what they're doing, like yeah, they're taking a really long time, but I think the idea is while they are having a literal longer development cycle than the original, when it should have been shorter considering they were using it as a base, what it suggests is that they are going above and beyond to make this the kind of game that doesn't suffer from sequelitis, that actually breaks new ground and is a feels like a fun new experience and is refreshing. They haven't shown us enough of that to confirm that kind of
Yeah,
feeling
we haven't
that's
seen.
what it's
To
going
be
to
clear,
be.
we haven't seen a lot
But
of gameplay. It's mostly just been Link's running. Okay, looks great. Looks great running. New costume, new long flowing locks. Like cool. Looks nice. Now, are there dungeons? No idea.
well, I'll say
Maybe.
actually
Um,
on the note of dungeons, let me tell you something. I This is my idea. The Master Sword's wrecked. And
yeah,
I'm probably it feels like it's fair to assume that Ganondorf or whatever that is, probably Ganondorf, just completely annihilated Link's hand, which had the sword, and they just got wrecked, right?
yeah,
And so the basic plot or of the game or your goal, part of your goal, is to restore the Master Sword so you can combat
yeah.
Ganondorf.
There's also the
That
fact the
you
sword
can't beat
is
him now.
glowing on his back, which is like what it did in Skyward Sword when Fee was talking to you.
Yeah,
So there's also is that back, which is
but
already speculated because Fee was referenced in
so
the
the point I
original
was getting
game.
at though,
But
the point I was getting at though is with the need to restore the Master Sword, how has that usually been done in other Zelda games? Going to different temples and dungeons.
mhm.
So it may be the case that in order to restore the Master Sword or repair it, in come dungeons from series past. And
Yeah,
that's kind of how they incorporate that idea and bring them back.
I think
That's one way they can go about it.
I think some Zelda players are waiting for that crazy moment in a trailer, like oh, falling from the sky, crazy moment. But what's so different about this compared to what we were already doing? We haven't seen it yet. One crazy moment could be, hey, we did see those patents. That falling through the sky arrow combat that's in the patents sounded amazing,
Crazy.
but we haven't seen it.
Crazy.
And I feel like Nintendo knows if this is in the game, showing that, and obviously making this work sounds super complex from a development standpoint. But if they make that work and they show that, when they show it, that's going to be like one of those gameplay moments where it's like, are you kidding me? Okay, this is not
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
This
that it's
this
one of those things that
and
it feels
I
new.
feel like they're holding back. They're holding back. They're holding back. They're teasing some ideas. Okay, we got a couple new mechanic ideas, replacing some of the Sheikah Slate ideas. Okay, we got we got this crazy sky thing. Link's looks different. His arm is messed up. We're kind of teasing story stuff, but not really telling you enough. Speculate away. Glowing symbol on his hand. Oh my gosh, are they stealing ideas from Xenoblade? Like, there's all this stuff
Yeah.
floating out there, which is crazy, but it's all speculative because they're just not giving you enough to put it together yet. And then on top of that, they haven't given us the shocking gameplay yet. And I feel like, and to be fair, we didn't have the shocking gameplay either until Nintendo was ready to blow the game out at E3 2016. That's when we got the shocking, wait a second, this is crazy physics, all the stuff we didn't know. We didn't know those ragdoll physics.
Let me
We
give
didn't
you a
know any of that
scenario.
crap until
Let me give you
E3.
a scenario. You
So,
ready?
yeah,
Ready? I'll give you a scenario. Okay.
here we go.
So
I'm ready.
E3 is gonna come, and we're gonna get like an actual gameplay. We're gonna see like straight, clean gameplay for Breath of the Wild 2 at E3. And what's gonna happen? It's gonna basically just show Link entering some sort of space, and you're gonna be It's gonna end up being like a giant sky battle, and there's gonna be some giant, maybe that giant tower we see in the trailer, right?
Don't even
And
tease
Link's
me with
falling.
sky battles because I'm already
Link's
excited.
falling to the sky, and what he's fighting is a giant, mammoth, monstrous like dragon beast, and you're just like, it's like Shadow of the Colossus style, but all through the sky. Link is like maneuvering the sky, doing backflips, backward arrow shots, different things, all dynamically, seamlessly. You see hair and follicles and particles just flying everywhere, and it's just going to be this huge, beautiful set piece, but it's all going to be gameplay. And that's gonna be. They're not gonna show the boss die, but they're gonna just show that kind of happen, and it's just gonna be kind of mind-boggling.
I mean, that I honestly think there's going to be a moment here before the game comes out where they're going to blow our minds with something crazy like that. It's going to be like, look, you thought you knew Breath of the Wild before. Now look at this. This is beyond anyone's expectations, anyone's imagination, beyond ours. And I think it's going to happen. It would be, I try to be careful in thinking of crazy ideas like that because, like, okay, now am I really overhyping myself, over expecting from the game? Is it fair to expect this from the game? But also at the same point, hey, it's been a long time. It's been in development a long time. We have patents showing crazy air combat. It would really suck if those patents and that arrow mechanics ended up not actually getting put in the game because it was too complicated or Switch's processor couldn't handle it or whatever the reasoning is.
I think instead of not putting in those ideas, they delay the game so they can't put in those ideas.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Like this is all uncharted territory for Zelda because they've never had a game this big with this big of expectation ever. Like expectation for Majora's Mask back in the day was not this big. Expectations for, Spirit Tracks, Falling of Phantom Hourglass, not this big. There were bigger expectations for what was coming next after Twilight Princess than pretty much anything until this. And now we have the best-selling Zelda game of all time, still selling millions and millions every year at full price. Game of the year, one of the most nominated and highest awarded Game of the Year game in history. And now we have a sequel to it. The expectations are just already at a level that Nintendo, I don't think, is even used to. Like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And, by the way,
I don't think they want to disappoint.
Mr.
They
Aonuma
sure
with the
this
clean cut.
Does it.
I like it. Business.
That was literally the first thing I noticed. I was like, "Whoa, this dude got a haircut.
Whoa.
He's looking different."
I'm like, wait a second. Is this representative? Because, like, in the past, he always had the crazy long hair. And now it's like, oh, wait a second. Is this, like, a sign for how to approach this game? The clean cut, craziness about to happen. I'm business casual. We're taking this to the next level. You don't even know. You don't even know what's about to happen. No, we really don't, Aonuma. Can you tell it? Okay, you can't, right? Okay, next year, I get it. Let other games get marketing. But also, we all know it's coming spring. So now you have no reason to really not give us trailer teases at major events for the rest of the year. We'll see. I don't think they're going to spend all year advertising it, but I could see E3 return at the Game Awards, and then the Spring Direct is really the big hullabaloo.
They could have an insane E3. Like, they can do so much, right? Like, they can give us like some extended gameplay of Breath of the Wild 2. They could reveal Metroid Prime Remake, but then give us like a 5-second snippet of Prime 4 saying 2023, right? And obviously they detail everything else. No,
you're making me get hard. This is not okay.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I might want to stop.
I'm a little uncomfortable now. Yeah.
I didn't know video game talk could make me feel this way.
Nintendo, man.
Nintendo. Only Nintendo games. Only Nintendo
Yeah.
games.
But I don't think what I said is like that.
Crazy.
No. Yeah. The game is gonna get shown off sooner or later. They did put that banner art for Metroid on Retro's page. Like, I think they are getting ready to show something off.
They seem pretty. That banner art kind of made it confident. Hey, you're gonna see this before they.
Not to mention, to your point, they are gonna have to start talking about 2023 stuff, right? So you give us Prime 4, you give us Breath of the Wild 2. Maybe Pikmin 4 comes out next year. Something Mario's coming out next year. For sure.
I mean, it's all about, how long do we think the current life cycle is going to last? Because Nintendo tends to just stop making games at some point when the new system is going to come. At least that's what history says. They don't have to do that. Cross-gen compatibility. The other platform holders are handling it just fine, doing cross-gen for a couple of years. Nintendo doesn't have to just cut off support for Switch like they've done with prior platforms, and maybe they won't. Maybe they won't this time. So they'd be like, oh, Pikmin 4 doesn't matter. It could be a cross-gen, or this could be a cross. It might not matter. But Nintendo's history says, we're going to have a year that has almost nothing. You get Paper Mario Color Splash. That's your big game for the second.
But that was COVID. That wasn't
COVID. That was Wii U's final year. That was the last.
I thought you were talking about Origami King.
No, not Origami King. No.
Oh,
Origami King was fine. It was better than Color Splash.
Yeah, Origami King was epic. It was
way better than Color Splash. Color Splash is
different. These are different times, right?
Yeah, different times.
I don't.
And that was weird too because they also canceled the system before we got to holidays without a system to sell. And then we got the NES Classic that was like their fill-in for sale. Nintendo knew what they were doing, clearly. They're like, oh, we're not going to sell that. Let's sell something else people might actually want. Oh, and that's classic. Yeah, people are going to want that. Let's sell millions of
Also,
that.
why they came out at March 3rd. They came out early on in the year,
Yeah.
so they could have that switch
So we'll see.
until they get rolling.
So I want to get to the next topic here because we got about 30 minutes here before we're done. And this is interesting because obviously Nintendo of America has had sort of an exodus of employees since they closed down their offices in California. So for people that don't know, Nintendo of America has offices. Their main office in Redmond, Washington. Everyone knows about that. It's a public address. You can literally go visit the outside of it if you want. Take your picture with the Nintendo sign. Nintendo actually encourages
sneaking in.
You won't get in. They have pretty good security there. Apparently, also a really nice garden and a whole bunch of other stuff that you're only ever going to see if you get invited to come in. Sometimes you can schedule a tour. They do tours, but very specific times on specific days. But yeah, they also had offices in California, and a lot of their employees at Nintendo America, a lot of the front-facing that we saw, their beautiful faces all the time, Treehouse employees, a lot of them actually worked at California because that's just the mecca of technology or whatever people try to talk like it is. Well, Nintendo decided to close those offices, and they were not firing anybody. This is the key thing. They didn't close the offices with the intent to fire anybody. They were going to relocate all the employees to Redmond,
Nate,
Washington.
your footage is not showing on the stream.
Hey, my camera died. Well,
what's funny is that I see you. Oh, but I do have a different angle.
Yeah, you're using a different camera. The backup camera. Hold on. Yeah, you know what happened, guys? My camera probably overheated. Remember how I said I need a new camera? This is why.
Perhaps he simply has evolved. Perhaps now Nate has transformed into just a mass of darkness, and it's just all-encompassing power. Hence the black screen. Or he just reset his camera and it's fine.
All right. Yeah. See, I'm back now. Yeah, it's an overheating problem. We already know. We know. So one issue that's obviously happened with all those employees going away, or deciding to leave because they didn't want to move, is Kit and Krista from Nintendo Minute. They they left. Obviously, that's why the show ended up being canceled. Obviously, as we found out when they left Nintendo right after the show got canned because they ended it and started a new podcast. And they've been appearing on podcasts and doing interviews. In fact, I might reach out to them eventually to see if they might want to stop on over and have a little conversation about their time at Nintendo. I don't expect them to respond, by the way. I'm not so presumptuous to think that I matter in the world of Kit and Krista. They got their own thing going on with tons of support. But Kit decided to speak out against Nintendo on some things, give some honest thoughts, as he calls them, now that he no longer works there and, has to sort of keep his mouth shut because, of course, you want to protect your job and not speak out against the company. By the way, he doesn't say anything super negative. If you listen to any of the new stuff, most of their experiences at Nintendo are positive, but this has to do with Nintendo Switch Online. And it's kind of funny because, obviously, if he feels this way, I'm sure a lot of other employees, at least at Nintendo of America, probably also echo these thoughts. Whether or not they voice them, I don't know, but I'm really glad that now that he doesn't work there, he can voice his thoughts on Nintendo Switch Online. And here's what Kit said. This is where I have an issue. I think giving people an indication of what the plan is, and this is in regards to releasing games in the future on the platform, helps. And by the way, technically we got an update right as the podcast was started on new games coming. So it's kind of funny that we're doing this topic, then Nintendo teases us. But they were doing this while they were there too. So he says, how often am I going to be getting these? I think the initial NES and Super Nintendo games, those were awesome groups of games. But then everything after that has been kind of bad for the most part. And it became very inconsistent. So it's like they are basically done with this versus the stuff they dug up and I've never heard of. Yeah, so that's what I get worried about where they added N64 and Genesis. It's like, what is the plan? I have almost more confidence that Sega is going to deliver the best Genesis games than I do with the other platforms. And he's regarding like N64, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, whatever else might be coming. He doesn't have any confidence that Nintendo is going to deliver consistent quality games. And then he goes on to talk about how also Nintendo Switch Online lacks appeal for younger fans because the people that care about old games are the ones that grew up with them. Fair. He
Very
goes on.
interesting. It's a compelling point.
Yeah, he goes on to say, "This is just me. If I was working at Nintendo, which is funny because he was working at Nintendo, but yeah, I think he's saying if he was in the position to make the decisions."
Right.
He says, "I would love to get something newer because this stuff is old. And if you're a younger player, you're like, what is this? Why would I want to play ice hockey on the Nintendo Entertainment System? That means nothing to me. A lot of those NES games are like early NES games that belong in a museum." Really going, which by the way, I mean, they should probably be in a museum to be completely fair there. And then Krista, the other co-host of their podcast, added in that it's just hard to get a handle on what I'm getting at. And this is from Krista. So I think it would help if they did something and were more transparent about what the plan is for each of these tiers. Basically, echoing the complaint. This is what I like about this is they're echoing the complaints I had about transparency, not communicating. We have no idea how long to expect getting games for, what platforms we're getting them for, what games we're going to be getting. And in addition to that, Krista did mention, there's no direct quote here, but she did mention how she does think maybe adding some newer platforms they've never done before could help. Like people that grew up in the early 2000s might remember the GameCube. So maybe adding something like that to the service could help a little bit. But I do think, there's some good points here. And these are from people that worked for Nintendo and have nothing but great things to say, except for this, where they're like, hey, there's no really appeal for younger fans and you want them to spend all this money. They just, they're just maybe just got their first jobs, just turning early 20s. They don't have memories with the SNES. Even the N64. Sure, you can argue those games are amazing, as I can. I grew up with them. But my kids don't really have a lot of interest in retro games, despite me introducing them to them, when they can go play something more modern that's in HD and runs better and gives them more freedom of control. And to them, they're just better games. Which I know that's all subjective, but that's just the way people feel. The things they grow up with are the things they think are the best. And people didn't grow up with these if you're younger. So, what are your thoughts?
I've gone back personally. I've gone back and played older games that were before my time, especially on the Wii U. Although on the Wii U there wasn't a lot of gaming options, so playing Super Nintendo and NES games was a good idea. That's where I made sure to get my Super Metroid and Link to the Past in, among a lot of other games like that. So I personally don't feel that way, but I'm also I'm a Nintendo YouTuber, right? I've made part of my lively occupation to make content about Nintendo. So for me, when I did that, to me that was almost more like, kind of studying up on the history of Nintendo by literally playing older games.
Sure.
So I understand I'm kind of like the exception, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't be like the average consumer buying a Switch.
Yeah. So I do acknowledge that. And I do kind of like the idea of maybe they do need to be a bit more creative and think of other ways to continue to add value. And they're doing this DLC thing. They got the Animal Crossing and the Mario Kart, and those DLC packages appeal more towards a modern audience, right? But is that enough? I don't know. I do like the idea of them coming up with maybe an exclusive the new Nintendo Online game. What would that be? Now, maybe it's one of those things where you don't have. Maybe it wouldn't. Okay, when I say exclusive, maybe you can buy it on its own, or if you have Nintendo Online, you get it for free, right? Nintendo Online Plus, one or the other. That way, you don't have to get it, but they create something like that, some sort of online only centric game. Not Splatoon, by the way. How crazy would that be if they announced that Splatoon 3 was for free if you have Nintendo Online? Expansion pack. That would be mind-boggling, wouldn't it?
I mean, that's doing what Sony refuses to. I know it's just a single game, but still, I mean, that's crazy.
Pre-orders have pre-orders for Splatoon 3 come up yet?
Yeah, you can pre-order it.
Okay. I'm just saying,
I mean, they're not going to not sell it, but yeah, it's an interesting concept since it is a game that requires you to have Nintendo Switch Online basically to do anything.
Yeah. I think it would have to be something smaller. But like imagine if they were to come up with maybe a
A
new
new
IP.
Rusty's Real Deal Baseball.
Sure. Or what if like what if
Love
they
that game.
resurrect Star Fox as like kind of like a online only dogfighting kind of thing, and it's you can buy it online on the eShop, or you can get it for free if you have a Nintendo Online expansion pack.
Yeah. All right. I can dig it.
And all of a sudden you have that other audience is that it reaches a larger group of people.
You mean don't do Mario 35 and then delete the game?
You can do that.
I mean, it's like let's add some value and then just delete it and not replace it with anything.
Or give bring Mario 35 back, but for expansion pack members.
Yeah, and Nintendo Talk brings up an interesting point. That Splatoon DLC will probably be free with the expansion pack. Probably, we'll see. I'm very curious to see
I
because
agree, probably.
one of the big value adds for people who don't care about classic games is the DLC, and is this a trend or will it just always be select DLC added? Like, are they going to start adding all DLC to the expansion pack?
What's
That makes it
interesting
a
is I
great
think
deal.
when they made the announcement for expansion pack, they didn't even announce that DLC would be free. The Animal Crossing news came
Yeah,
afterwards, if I'm not mistaken, right?
yeah,
And then they did the Mario Kart thing. Like, I think, people like you and me speculated they would do more things after the initial announcement, but they didn't to the point of, I guess, Kid and Krista, like they didn't do a good job of telling us, hey, there's gonna be more cool things to come here.
yeah. Like,
Right? Like if
as an
they
example, if they're going to add more DLC, let's say, and I've mentioned this before, if the idea was all future DLC will be available through this expansion pack from any of our first party studios. Okay, that's a really great idea.
but they're also not doing that either,
But
right?
they're
Like
not.
it's
Well, we don't know. But that's the thing. Every DLC announced since they released the expansion pack, which I know it's only been 2, is on there.
paid DLC.
Yeah, paid DLC. Yeah, obviously the free DLC is free
Um
DLC. You're not going to need to get
right.
for that.
I was just trying to think if we have, I guess we just haven't
Yeah,
had
I
the
mean it would have
opportunity
to be
yet.
what we haven't had. If Kirby gets new DLC announced, will that be on there? I have no idea.
Like so, yeah, Dread has free DLC, so
Yeah, like
that's it.
Splatoon 3 is the one that everyone presumes there'll be some sort of paid DLC because we have paid DLC for the prior
Maybe
games.
Nintendo Switch Sports
Yeah, maybe Nintendo Switch Sports. I mean, they're adding 2 new sports, I think, for free
for
before the end of the
free.
year. So I don't
Yeah,
think paid DLC will be till next year for that.
yeah, if
So
it's
they'll probably have
successful.
more sports or something.
Hmm.
So it'll be. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will obviously have DLC, but that won't be till next year. Like a lot of this is we won't know till next year because most of the games coming this year, their DLC would be next year. So a lot of it's going to be like we don't really know because we're too far away from when the DLC for these games is going to come out. Unless we think Metroid Dread's going to get paid DLC at some point, that could be something
I
announced
don't.
this year. I don't think so either. Legends Arceus could
Yeah.
end up getting paid DLC. That could get announced at some point
I
this year.
also
But also is not
don't
first
because
party
Scarlet
technically.
Violet. Yeah. Well, that's not even worth arguing. Like it says second party, but it's like not even a real thing. But
And Nintendo technically
yeah,
owns like a huge chunk of the studio that makes it as well.
it's first party.
And they work
It's
inside Nintendo's
it's published by
building.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's published by Nintendo. It's first. Like it's like I don't. It's first party. It's just so what? Like there, Sony and Microsoft have studios that develop
It
things for
really
them.
doesn't matter. To be completely honest, it really doesn't matter. But I always
Yeah.
clarify: first party's wholly Nintendo owned, and it's not wholly Nintendo owned. That makes it second party. Third party is Nintendo doesn't own anything. Second party is partial
Yeah.
ownership. So
Yeah,
it's kind of
but then
like
again, sometimes that gets a little messy because like sometimes Nintendo helps to publish third-party stuff on Switch too, right?
yes, but when they do that, as I'll give an example here, Bayonetta 3, Nintendo's publishing that game. They paid for the game to be made. It kind of makes that game a second party game made by a third party studio because they don't actually own the IP. Sega owns the IP.
Yeah,
So it's a really like I think the lines are a lot clearer than people make it
your
out to be.
camera overheated by the
Yeah,
way.
it's not going to cool down until the stream is over. So the show
Yeah,
goes
I
on.
mean,
The show goes
we got
on.
like what 15 minutes left anyway.
Yeah, the show goes on. So, um, so like I just find it fascinating because these are obviously 2 beloved former Nintendo employees in front of people every single week on Nintendo Minute, now doing their own podcasts, and they're kind of like, hey, when when we were at Nintendo, we didn't like that they weren't transparent. These complaints people have about Switch Online, we kind of agree. They're not really doing enough for people that don't like classic games. And like the people that do like classic games, they kind of blow their load when they launch it, and then they give you a bunch of games that you don't care about later, and they don't tell you even when you're going to get those games. Example, like even today, the March games, right? Note, March game. No N64 game in this. There is Earthworm Jim 2 for the Super Nintendo. There is Digged G, Trouble in Paradise by Bandai Namco for the NES. And there is Mappy Land, also for the NES. And that's what we're getting this month. And again, nothing wrong with adding these games. And I happen to actually like Earthworm Jim 2.
But those are the base Nintendo Online updates, right? Those are not expansion packs. So, yeah,
I mean, it says
don't think
March
they were
game
gonna...
updates.
Yeah, but I don't.
I guess that's
think...
March. I guess maybe they dropped
what
these
I'm
today.
trying to
These
say is
might have
that
been
I
dropped
think
today. So
that was always going to be separate from expansion pack announcements.
Yeah, April could still have obviously games because this was today. So I think
like
they
but
shadow dropped.
What I'm trying to get at is that they've just shadow dropped the N64 announcements. But no, not shadow drop, but they just kind of announced it. Hey, we're coming out with this in a few weeks. Enjoy, right? So I don't know. I'll wait till Nate comes back. But what was the last N64 game that came out? Because Banjo-Kazooie... No, F-Zero X just came out. F-Zero X came out F-Zero X just came out like what? Like 2 weeks ago? Has it been a little bit more than that already?
I don't remember. Yeah, and as I said, these, to be fair, this does sound a little bit better because it was a shadow drop today. So this isn't like announcing games for April. But still, it was also shadow drop today. We didn't know we were getting these. It's cool. I don't know. I find it fascinating the Nintendo employees are speaking out, and obviously I agree with them because they just pretty much echoed every criticism I've had of this online service. No transparency, no consistency, and I didn't even think about the angle, hey, if you don't like classic games, why the hell are you paying for this service?
Yeah. But you know, I do want to say that I think Nintendo has actually been doing a better job with the expansion pack. Because they have been coming out with good N64 games with some consistency. There's a hope that maybe GoldenEye is part of that lineup in the future. We'll see. That's unconfirmed.
Let me ask you something.
But they are also patching the emulation, right? The emulation has been getting better. So, and then, you know, they recently did announce the Mario Kart DLC as free. Like, these are all things that make the package better. Like, they are making steps here. And we're only, we're in March, and we've gone all these things already. That's pretty good.
How long, when they dropped the NES and SNES, did they consistently release games every month? Because we've been down this road.
I don't know.
That's the thing.
Totally frank with you, I didn't care too much about them.
Yeah, it was about 9 months that they consistently after launch dropped, and we're still within that 9-month window. Like the reason I don't give Nintendo credit for the game drops is because they did this before. They just launched a new system on there. Of course, they're going to have a game a month, and a game a month is already less than what we used to get. We used to get 3-4 games a month. Now it's just 1. Now, granted, we did just get a shadow drop of 3 games now, and Genesis games are just being randomly dropped, just completely random. There's no consistency on when Genesis games come. However, when the Genesis games come, they drop like 10 of them at once. Now, I don't know if Nintendo's even handling that. Sega could be the one dealing with their own games on the Switch. I have no clue, because I don't. I have not partaken in the Genesis games yet on Switch. Have you? Have you played them yet on Switch?
Yeah, I've played a few of them.
Do they have online play with them? Like the N64 ones do?
They do. I think most of them are 2-player, but
yeah, that's the way Genesis was back then. It was all 2-player. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they got.
I haven't done it, but it has it.
Okay. Yeah. Because that wasn't a feature back in the day, so I wanted to know if they were getting the same treatment, obviously, as Nintendo's games, and they are. So that's good. It's good they're doing that. So yeah, I'm not saying the service isn't better than it used to be. It has N64 and Genesis games now. That already makes it better, even though it's an expansion pack. They have now a second pack of DLC in there, not just Animal Crossing. Technically, that makes it better. That makes it more valuable. Yeah,
it's ongoing DLC too, right?
It's ongoing until 2023. Yeah.
Yeah.
which means they could argue they're trying to lock you in for 2 years, and if all you cared about was the Mario Kart DLC, they actually dinged you for more than the cost of the Mario Kart DLC on its own. But that's neither here nor there, because if you have Mario Kart, you're probably going to play online anyways, right?
Yeah.
But then again, it's like $80 a year for a single, and then that's 100. Like, you could just buy the DLC.
You don't get it just to have to get the Mario Kart DLC.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
play
Well,
online.
you wouldn't get the expansion pass for it, but you could see where someone might go, hey, I need to have online anyways. Why not get the expansion pass? It gives me, like, people aren't always as smart as we want them to be, and they'll buy the DLC now because they'll get the expansion pass now because they get it for the next year, not realizing that at the end of that year, if they don't renew, they lose access to that DLC. Like, it's like a realization that hits them. And I know this because I've seen a lot of people complain about this, when Nintendo's been transparent about that part, by the way. Very transparent. It's part of the paid expansion pass. If you don't pay for it anymore, you obviously don't have access. It's like common sense. But, I don't think that realization is going to hit some younger people who make rash decisions, which anyone can make rash decisions. I've made rash decisions. I spent 10 grand on a studio when I don't even have 100,000 subscribers. And I've only had 1 year ever on YouTube where I've made over 10 grand. Doesn't sound like a smart choice. So we all make rash decisions one way or another. This camera was like an emergency purchase, and it was clearly the wrong camera since it overheats. So, yeah, I'm dumb. And I think if I'm dumb, then a lot of people can be dumb. Maybe wasting a lot of money right now. But we'll see. I think
random thing I just want to say is
Yeah.
just a thought that
No,
crossed
you go.
my mind.
You go. I'm gonna
Kinda
shut
goes
up for the
beyond
next
games.
next 8 minutes. It's all you, buddy.
Oh, it's too much pressure. I was just gonna say that again, this is like not even like a gaming thing. I believe that most people, no, pretty much everyone, is not as smart as you might think they are. But on the flip side, no one is really as dumb as you think they are, right? I think everyone's actually a lot closer than we realize. Yeah, now everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
But I just think sometimes people will see someone and think, man, they're just like incredibly smart and brilliant. I can't compare to that. But sometimes the difference is very subtle to get to that point. It's not even just with intelligence, with sports too. Sometimes the difference between a great team and a bad team is a subtle thing, and it can make a huge difference.
Like not bashing your head coach in an interview after you just lost a tight game at home. Sorry, Joel Embiid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how well that works for team chemistry heading into the postseason to disagree with your head coach. But
it could potentially create issues.
yes, could potentially. I mean, the funny thing is too with that reference, because I'm a big NBA fan, guys, is that my team's the Milwaukee Bucks, and our coach used to get attacked all the time for being a bad coach, bad rotations, bad this, bad that. And now he doesn't get attacked for anything because he won a title. But the entire time that was happening, the Bucks' best player, Giannis, said, I hear what you're saying. You want me to cover Kevin Durant? You want me to do this? You want me to do that? I will do what coach tells me to do. And he just backed up the coach the entire time. To be fair, he did it with Jason Kidd as well. And Jason Kidd got fired because there wasn't success. And chances are Coach Bub would be fired if there wasn't success either. So it's not like this would preclude Doc Rivers from getting fired. However, your best chance at success is buy in to what the coach is selling, and the coach will get himself fired if he needs to be fired. So I kind of think they're pissing away their playoff chances this year, which for Philly fans, I feel you. The process feels like it's still ongoing.
I don't know. I mean, there's ups and downs, right? Like
Ups
the
and
Heat just
downs.
were first, and they just went on a 4-game losing streak. Like
Yeah.
ups and downs. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Miami had a stranglehold, and then they lost a bunch, and who knows? By the way, I think Miami's still gonna be fine. I think Miami will be okay if they can avoid the Nets. And we have no idea where the Nets are finishing. I think nobody wants to play the Nets round one.
I'm okay with it. I have the perspective of if you're gonna be the best, you should be able to beat everyone. And
Oh yeah, that's where the Bucks were. Like
Yeah.
the Bucks didn't avoid Miami last year, even though Miami's been the team that gave them the most problems in the postseason. They said, "Screw it, we're gonna keep winning, and if we play them, we play them."
my ideal scenario, the Heat, because they're my team.
Yeah.
They play the Nets, then they play Philly, and then they play the Bucks.
Yeah.
Like I want them to have the toughest, and then they play the Suns at the end. Like I want them to have the
Mhm.
toughest road to the championship.
That sounds like the Bucks. The Bucks played nonstop playoff teams for like the next all the way to the end of the season. It's crazy. And then they got the Nets on Thursday. And then they got I can't remember. It's a bunch of top tier. The Celtics right after that. It's gonna be a fun end of the year. It's actually kind of cool. Like as an NBA fan, this time of the year is exciting when your team is vying for playoff position and plays a bunch of like top tier teams because it really
I just think it's interesting that we're talking about basketball
preps you for the
on
playoffs.
Nintendo podcast.
That's fine, dude. You're lucky I didn't flip this script like in like 1 minute in, and we just talked about basketball for 2 hours. You guys have no clue how bad I want to start a sports podcast. I've been literally debating this with Eric now for like 5 years. Hasn't happened. We'll see if it ever does. I don't know if people really care what I have to say about sports, anyways. But
well,
I do want.
I just want to
get some
people
final
didn't care
thoughts.
about what you said about video games. So
Yeah, the difference is I built up a reputation since I was 12 at fan sites that kind of gave me a kickstart on an audience. So I've been doing it a lot longer, whereas I have not existed at all in the sports area to garner a following for sports. So it's kind of like, do I have enough people who listen to this that would want to listen to that to justify doing it? Probably not. And can I build a new audience in a field that I'm not experienced in? I have no idea. I did it here, but I've been doing this since I was 12 and I'm now 35. Is it going to take me 20 years to build that audience? It's kind of like I don't know. It'd be something I mostly do for fun. It would not be as dedicated as this is because obviously there's actual stakes and money and my family involved with this, whereas not with that. That being said, I think that's a pretty good wrap. I know you said you got 4 Zelda videos coming out or ideas for videos.
there could be more.
It's
I mean, we've touched on them, right? We touched on them. Like, I'm probably gonna talk about what could be Nintendo's Zelda game for this year, if there even will be one. There's kind of all the theories that come from just the footage we got. Like, that's a whole bunch right there. There are things. That's at least 2 videos right there, but there's more. So
yeah. It'll be interesting. I look forward to those videos. You're one of the few YouTubers I actually watch every video. It also helps you don't post as many videos as I do, because then I probably wouldn't watch them. I'm a little insane. But
I usually watch your channel for news.
Why, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I haven't really, besides the Zelda news, I haven't really posted much news this week. It's been a bit of a weird week. But
Zelda
whatever.
has been the news.
I'll be back at posting some other news tomorrow, guys. I already have a few things banked up we'll be talking about tomorrow. Doing a normal video on the normal set. Anyways, all right. Well, thank you so much, Andres Restart, for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
You're always a pleasure to have you on the show, especially someone who can make me shut up, because people get mad at me a lot when I have guests on that just are afraid to talk because I'm talking. And you're always like, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. You like to talk a lot. I know,
I
guys.
gotta share the talk.
I get the criticism. I get it, all right? I'm aware of it. I've told Eric when he's here, sometimes he needs to grab the duct tape, put it over my mouth, and I'm not allowed to talk for 45 minutes. All right. Eric, carry the show. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. You guys are awesome. The audience are awesome. Thanks for understanding. Obviously, I do apologize for maybe feeling a little agitated. I wasn't agitated towards you guys earlier. We talked about this. It was just the audio issues. Me being frustrated because, of course, things were working, and then they weren't. And then, of course, not Andres Restart's fault that he didn't tell me I sounded like a robot on his end. But I don't blame him for that. So it's all me. It's all me,
I asked
baby.
people in the chat if we sounded okay, and everyone said it was cool. I was like, all right, maybe it changed.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's the thing. At the very beginning, I said, I hope we're sounding fine, and then I saw like 5 people go, oh yeah, you sound good, and I'm like, cool, let's just go then. I'm not even worried about it. I wish I would have. If there was a problem right away, whatever. At least I know it was voice mod this time. Last time it was something else. This time it's voice mod. Next week it'll be my whole computer blows up. I don't know. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Nintendo Prime Podcast, episode 44. It will be up on the podcast channel and audio tomorrow. So if you didn't catch the whole podcast and you want to hear it with the audio leveled out and everything, you want to listen to it on your iPods or whatever, iPhones, Androids, it's on everything. It's on the Google Play Store. It's on Spotify. It'll be on all of that. Also, our other podcast channel. Please go subscribe to it if you want to get the cut down version that has the better audio. If you want to catch the video. Also, on that channel, never mind. I'm not going to announce that yet. I do have an announcement for that channel, but I'll save that for when Eric's here because I think it's only appropriate that the co-host is part of that announcement. So, all right, guys, you guys are awesome. Catch you next week. Peace out.